Hey gearheads, and welcome to GT Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I am your host Cory, and on this week's episode, I'm excited. Uh, I, don't, I don't know how it happened, but I've made good friends with people in high places, and if you are a fan of TFL Studios, which encompasses TFL Car or the Fastlane Car, TFL Truck, TFL Off-Road, TFL Bike, many different channels, all of which are at or near a million subscribers or more. They're doing good things over there in Boulder, Colorado. I have the privilege of interviewing today Nathan Adlen of TFL Studios. He is the one of the big three, the original three, so to speak, that I've yet to meet in person. So I've met Roman, I've met Andre in person, but very cool to chat with Nathan Adlen of TFL Studios today. And before I just gush on how cool of an experience it is, we'll just bring him on. Nathan, it
Okay.
is so great to have you on.
Absolutely, my pleasure, and howdy to all my amigos in Texas.
Yes, well, we are growing our audience every single week, it seems like, and just awesome to get to talk to people that have been shaping the industry like yourself over there at TFL Studios. I will say that encompasses it all, correct?
Yeah, it's a lot easier than trying to name every website and every channel we have. It's a little daunting. I can't even do it at this point. I thought we had TFL Boat for a while. Turns out we don't.
Oh, boy. Okay. Well, just perhaps for my listeners who somehow are unfamiliar with TFL Studios and yourself and your team out there, why don't you kind of give a quick recap of your experience in the automotive industry?
So, back up all the way to when I was a kid. My family owned wrecking yards, auto wrecking yards all throughout Southern California, some of the biggest ones, too, frankly. And so I grew up in a wrecking yard family, which was really awesome, by the way. And moving forward, I got into writing and even forms of film and theater kind of on the side, but I wanted to become a journalist. So after getting married and moving to Colorado from LA, which by the way was really awesome, I'm thrilled I did that.
Yeah.
My wife gave me the ultimatum saying, well, now's the time because we're going to start a family and things are going to happen.
Yeah.
So about 2 decades ago, I started working on it and went back to school and learned journalism and everything else, as opposed to all the other stuff that was wasteful classes that I learned in the past. Then I started writing, and eventually, after working really hard, I reached out to several different writers who I admired. A couple responded, including David E. Davis, who I idolized. And the first few things he read from me, and he did read a couple of things, and he just told me, "Kid, it's terrible." And so he was really honest, brutally honest, actually. And this is back when print was still king.
Right.
This is really before the internet really kicked in. So we're talking about the late 90s and early 2000s. And then progressively, finally, one person led to another, and I got my first job. My first big job was actually working for vehix.com. I don't know if you guys remember that organization, but they were around. They were huge for a while. And so I wrote for them, and I grew through them for over 7 years, almost 8. And during that time, I met this guy named Roman Micah. And Roman, at the time, he and I, one of my side jobs was working for this thing called The Examiner. I don't know if you guys remember that, but they were all over the country for a while. And there was an online newspaper magazine. Unfortunately, what they did is they hired a lot of people who were inexperienced and wrote for them, and also a lot of people who were experienced. And Roman and I were kind of right in the middle of that ether.
Right.
And so we both wound up at the same event, which was back when I think Cerberus was buying out Chrysler. Or it was really a dark time for Chrysler.
Yes.
And so he and I showed up at this event, which was terribly sad because it just was. And we thought, oh, Jeep's going to die and everything else. And he and I just started talking, and a friend of ours kind of introduced us and said, hey, I'd look for each other. He was the gear guy. He did like automotive gear, but he was also mainly triathlon stuff and
Right.
everything else. And I was, automotive guy. And yeah, one thing led to another. And he finally goes, next time we hook up, let's do a video together. Video, all right. Now, prior to that, I did a few videos for VHIX. They were full blown commercials, and I was lucky enough to act in those, and so I had an idea of what to do. And next thing you know, we're at a Ford event for right when they introduced the EcoBoosts, right when that powertrain hit. So that was the Ford Flex, and we started doing videos together. And one thing led to another, and I progressively did more and more videos with him, and less with VHIX. VHIX rolled over and died. And I left them, and I started working with other people, a bunch of other organizations, including CBS.com,
Okay.
Made Men, a whole bunch of other ones. Anyway, during that time, Roman was like, we're doing more and more videos. People are starting to watch them now, because at first our videos were really horrible. And,
It's a
maybe we should
steep
open.
learning curve, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it is. And back then, we're talking 12 years ago now. YouTube was just kind of getting its legs and really starting to, it was the first sensation amongst, social media that anybody could access. And we decided to really push. So we opened up our website. We started tflcar.com. Um, a little tiny bit of money trickled in. We just worked and worked and worked. And one day, and this is where the big change was, Roman said, "Listen, I want to make a video every day, every single day. I think we can do it." And at the time, his son's like, I don't know, 12
Yeah.
or 13 years old and editing our videos. And Roman's like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's just fire it away." And next thing you know, we're cranking out a video every day. We're doing a story every day on the website. We are running to every story we can get to. We're calling. Now, I had connections and Roman had connections.
Yeah.
So because I worked at VHIX, that got me in the door to almost every automaker. I mean, I was going to, Porsche events and whatnot as well. I was really, up there. So I already had my name established. So I was able to help TFL in that way. And then Roman, from the opposite side, he was a former news
Mm-hmm.
not anchor. What would you call him? A host, man on the scene
Okay.
type thing. So outside of Chicago, and he would run around and have to fire up the camera, jump in front of the camera, and report on a house burning down behind him.
Wow.
That type of thing. So he kind of cut his teeth in a very different way.
Yeah.
But he and I had a shared love, which was we just loved cars. And because we were so different, we really found that there was a very interesting, in between there. Roman had a friend, that was Andre. Now we're about 3 years into TFL, really starting to roll. And Andre fit a niche we had, which was we just at first we needed. He was known as the Russian mechanic,
Right.
and it moved from there to him just being a full-time guy. He loved trucks. He was a numbers guy, which is perfect for trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And seriously, the guy is remarkable in terms of what he can remember. He understands the workings of just about anything that moves in a way that he can actually paint a picture, at least that he can see. When
Right.
he explains it to me, he might as well speak in Greek. But you know, so we all suddenly the three of us are like, "Oh, this is cool. We're all having fun," and we started really getting some steam up. We opened up TFL Truck, and that was 2 years after TFL Car opened up, and Truck took off.
Yeah.
And from there, we just progressively grew. Once Tommy hit high school, he was in pretty much full time. He after he graduated college, now Tommy's really taken ownership of part of TFL, and we hit our groove, and we just started adding channels when we saw there was a need. We started adding websites when we saw there was a need, and we brought in more staff. We now have, I believe, 13
Wow.
staff members, um, 9 channels, uh, 5 websites, and no, I'm sorry, 4 websites. We probably will have 5 very soon, though.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we're flying. We just bought a ranch.
Oh my gosh.
Uh, yeah, the ranch is for off-roading,
Okay.
which I'll go into in a little bit. I absolutely love off-roading. It's one like my favorite thing, being off-road.
Right.
Um, and yeah, so we just tried to figure out a way to make it all work. And here's the best part: we live in Colorado. Our studio is in Boulder, Colorado, and the ranch isn't too far from there. Um, it means that the unknown, the extra host, the extra character is the Rocky Mountains. We
Right.
use it for so much, for off-roading, for going through snow, harsh weather. amazing highways that are high speed.
The
We have
Ike
access to
Gauntlet.
all. Yeah, well, yeah, the Ike Gauntlet, which is now in its 8th year, I
My
believe, or
goodness.
7th year. Yeah, we've been doing it for a while, and people actually, they use it as a unit of measure now,
Right.
and they try to follow our formula, which is great. Everything that we do, we trial and error and trial and error, and the best part is that we can directly reach out to our viewers and say, did this work?
Right.
And we can find out pretty quickly whether or not something is awesome or absolute garbage, and we move from there and we learn, which is how we've been able to adapt
Right.
and grow. So you probably asked for a 5-minute response, and that took 10.
No, I appreciate because for one, I'm deep in the throes of it myself, trying to grow
Yeah,
GT Garage Talk. And, I've come across Roman and Andre at a couple events. You and I were talking before I hit the record button. And it's a great camaraderie. The whole point of this podcast is getting to allow people to tell their stories, because when you're on camera, you're talking about the car. The car is the star. People
right.
want to know more about the vehicle, but the joys of this podcast is I've gotten to meet all the amazing people from throughout the industry and get to hear their stories, get to see where they came from and what they've come through to get to where they are. And so I've been following with you, following your channel and your growth for a while. I told you before we hit record that as my son was a newborn and I had him laying on my chest taking a nap while my wife was catching up on some very much needed rest herself, I was scrolling through all the TFL vids on YouTube. Just, at the time, I really wanted a Trail Boss Silverado, like you wouldn't believe. And so I was watching every single video I could. Y'all ended up buying one, so y'all had plenty of content. And since then, as y'all have been introducing channels, I've been hitting that subscribe button just to see what's going on up there in Boulder.
I got to tell you, out of all the trucks we've been through, because we buy them and keep them for at least a year, usually for a year,
Right,
I really like that Trail Boss. It was such a great setup because it had the 5.3 and the 10 speed as opposed to the 8 speed.
right,
That's the right combination for the Trail Boss. The only thing I wish it had was a real locker. But
right.
hey, that's beggars can't be choosers. It was a good, solid truck. Sorry, I'm still in truck mode.
Yeah,
We just did. So just a quick little thing over at TFL Studios. Mondays we have meetings every early morning, and Roman will come in, or I'll come in, or Andre will come in. There'll be a harebrained idea or something, or suddenly current events could force us to do something.
right,
Like right now,
right.
gas prices are horrendous. So in one day, we churned out 4 to 6 full videos, which are up now or will be up in the next 24 hours. And we cover everything from EPA numbers to the numbers that we've already, done on our own, and we combine them together so we have personal experience with actual, hard data. And I got to tell you, that's tiring, but it sticks in your head.
Yes, it does.
So I've been with Andre all day, and it's been trucks like constantly, and so I'm a little I'm in the truck mode right now. So I
Well,
apologize to your
I
listeners who would rather me talk about cars.
Well, I'm in truck mode as well. I just got out of a 2022 GMC Sierra 2500 HD with the 6.6 liter Duramax, and if it weren't for the 446 price of diesel right now, that was a very very tempting rig, because I had an '07 Silverado brand new back then, and
Mhm.
just how far General Motors has come in their build quality and everything in that vehicle, I was smitten, and it was a solid truck through and through. And I've been in Rams, I've been in Fords. I myself am unashamedly a GM guy, but I'm seeing the benefits of the other brands as well. And yeah, very much in like with that Sierra 2500.
Yeah, I'll tell you, and also your listeners, something that I think is something I learned over the years. I'm an old man now, so I had a little bit of experience. Um, Find yourself people who are fans of each brand if you can,
Right.
like people you can be close with, because if you have a little bit of a bias, you can still run it by somebody else and get their perspective and someone's perspective that you trust, as opposed to just, a stranger or somebody who you don't know. And it's very interesting what happens over time, because you start to reshape your bias, you
Yep.
start to reshape your perspective a little bit. It's funny, and I still am a huge Ram person for two reasons. One, the Power Wagon.
Ugh.
Um, I've done stupid, stupid stuff with that, and I've survived. And the TRX,
Yes.
because on the opposite side, that's just a stupid, stupid truck, but it is epic. And we were lucky enough to
Wholeheartedly
buy one.
agree.
I was begging Roman to buy a Power Wagon, begging him, and so just this makes so much sense. And he looked at me and he said, "Does it put out over 700 horsepower?" And I was like a 3-year-old, like, "No, it doesn't." And he's like, "Well, come on!"
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, "Geez, I know," because for all actually for not too, I mean, the Power Wagon I was looking at was nearly the same price as that TRX. This is a little over a year ago now.
Right.
Anyway, um, so I admit that those I love them, but a friend of mine was a Ford fan, and he said, "Listen, you need to start checking out these new EcoBoosts." This is back when EcoBoost was just really kicking in with the F-150s and everything else, and they still had a naturally aspirated V6 and stuff like that. And I thought, "Yeah, the V6 is crap." He goes, "No, no, 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 no. You got to try this."
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm in a EcoBoost Ford, and my hair, what little there was left, flew out of my head. These things were monsters,
Yeah.
and they handled really well. And I was like, "Oh my god, this is great." Then a friend was like, "No, no, 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 no. You got to see what Chevrolet's doing. They've got some interesting stuff." "Oh, really? What do they have?" "Well, and of course the 6.2-liter V8. Well, God, it's an
Yes.
amazing engine. So, progressively more and more, I had people doing this. Funny part, out of all of this, I was a Toyota fan first. That was my
Really?
first favorite truck. Yeah, I owned a Tacoma, and back in the day, I had a regular Toyota truck, which didn't last very long, which is my fault. But I always thought the Tundra was kind of cool. And then when the Nissan Titan came out, the first generation,
Hmm.
I thought it was the coolest looking truck. I thought it was out of, childhood Battlestar Galactica or something like that. I was like, "Oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever!" And I loved the big engine. So my bias was actually towards Japanese trucks before even moving to Colorado. And we're
Yeah.
talking over 2 decades now. So it's been an interesting ride, but I've learned that I listen to other people's perspective. Even Mr. Truck, for those of you who don't know, Mr. Truck is the man. He will talk your ear off.
Yeah, I've come
Um,
across him a time or two.
he's worth talking to. He's
Yes.
he's a wild man. He's a lot of fun, but you know, you can pull their information, pull it out of them, because even if you completely disagree with them, you owe it to yourself to at least try it. And I bet that you've jumped into a few vehicles where you're like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize it was this nice," or "I thought it would be better." You know what I mean? I'm sure you have already done that. And
Absolutely. And the more I get into, because I do new and some idolized used vehicles from my
mhm.
youth. And so I've been in recently an '04 C5 Corvette. And that I graduated high school in '05. So that was like the Corvette of my adolescence. And, you know, if you look at the interior wrong, it creaks. It, if you didn't take care of it, which whoever owned this one did, it only had 34,000 miles on it. But if you didn't take care of it like a baby, it wore and just looked atrocious over time. But when I stomped on it and started rowing through the 6 speed manual, I was like, none of that even matters because that LS was just so good. And it proves why so many people swap those engines into other vehicles.
Yeah,
And it really was the heart and soul of that vehicle.
it's interesting when it's very difficult, and you're going to find this the longer you stay in this business. You'll start falling in love with certain things, and it's very difficult when you fall in love with more than one thing.
Right.
A really good example is that I absolutely adore the first generation Viper GTS. It
Oh, yes.
was an animal. It nearly killed me when I got to drive one finally. And it was everything that's awesome in the world and manly. It was
Right.
just terrifying, which is great.
Back when cars
Um,
were trying to kill you, it was a good thing.
it was a good thing, right? And it it definitely proved that I had no talent for
Right.
driving on the track like other people.
Right.
And I know race car drivers, and it's just like I'm not them, which is good, because it proves that I'm rational, right?
Right.
But then you go from there to all of a sudden you jump into like that new Acura NSX. That
Mhm.
is such a good car. It's such a modern piece of art, just from the standpoint of what it is technically under the skin. But then it's like, oh my god! But I drove the Hellcat Red Eye, and that's the
Right.
best. And the thing is that after a while, it's people are like, well, you can't just have one favorite. It's like, yeah, it's like you're making me choose between my kids, which one I like the most. Which maybe I do like one more than the other. But the point is that cars, you can't sometimes. You really can't. And the same goes for trucks. Various types of trucks, some from the past, some that are currently out, some that are about to come out. You can fall in love with more than one.
Right.
And that's, I think, what makes me a little unique, versus a lot of the guys I work with who are just like, no, it's got to be, it's Dodge, it's
Right.
Ram,
Right.
it's
Right.
this, or, Ford. I try to be open about that because I find so many of these new vehicles to be incredible, with very few faults. And it's actually makes my job harder.
I would agree wholeheartedly, especially after driving older vehicles that I idolized so much in my youth. You hop in practically anything now. I am yet to come across a vehicle that I just would completely write off. Yeah, there are aspects that are not my favorite, a hard back seat or, just weird design, whatever the case may be. But build quality of all the brands has come up tremendously. Longevity has come up. You've got brands like Hyundai, Kia, Genesis that have come from almost relative obscurity to the general public to now they are like the brand that everybody's gunning for. It's a unique time to be alive in the automotive industry for sure.
It is, and there's a lot of changes that are beginning, and there's a lot of some massive changes that are on the horizon. And I choose to embrace change. You can fear things, I suppose, but it's not going to change it.
Right.
So I just try to find the best thing out of it. For instance, I mean, electrification, it's going to happen. It's happening now. Hell, I own an electric car. I bought my daughter a 2016 Nissan Leaf,
Nice.
and it's remarkably boring. It's if I gave it to my son, I wouldn't really worry about becoming a grandfather anytime soon. It's one of those things where it's not the most sexy car, but
Right.
it is actually a really good little car.
Mhm.
And it gave me hope about, the electrified tomorrow and everything else. And I fear it. I don't fear it. I do think that the coolest thing about the future is that these new plug-in hybrids that I'm seeing, I get to a lot of behind the scenes
Mhm.
stuff, which is really cool about being in this business for a while. So I get to learn about it well before it's actually made public. So do, my cohorts, and I see stuff that's just incredible. And you get the both worlds with the plug-in hybrid, or you get these new hybrids that like the Ford Maverick. Oh my God, it's a great little hybrid. It's so
Like,
smart.
yes.
Yeah, I think it's just super cool. And I really wish that other people came up with it too. Where the hell are you, Toyota? Nissan, you
Chevy.
dropped the ball. Chevy. Yeah, I mean, come on. Everybody dropped the ball. Ford totally took advantage of an open area, took it. Hyundai kind of was there, and
Right.
there's nothing wrong with the Santa Cruz, but the Santa Cruz is more of a car, whereas you can treat that little Maverick hybrid like a truck, and it's going to give you 40 miles per gallon. I mean, how awesome is that?
That thing is just insane. We had it for a week here, and uh, fans of the channel know that I've brought my wife in, and you want to talk about changing brand biases, bringing in someone who doesn't have skin in any of the brands really has opened my eyes because she refuses to tell me anything about the vehicle, her thoughts on it, until the cameras are rolling, and she quizzes me and. So far, my batting average is a little bit lower than my weight, so I need to do a little bit better on judging what it is that she likes or doesn't like about vehicles.
Well, if I do recall, you did a Buick. Was it not an Encore? What's the big one?
Enclave. Yeah.
Enclave. I really wish they'd stop with the E's.
Uh,
Um,
we did
but
an
it was
Envision as
nice.
well, and I had to catch myself. All right, which EN is this? Enclave, Envision, Encore. No, yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Entourage is the new one, right?
yeah. Sure, why not?
It's Encounter. No, if I recall, and I apologize, my days are really limited in terms of how much video I watch from
Right.
other, reviewers and whatnot. So every once in a while, when you post something, I'll click on it, and so I do remember, as I said, I do remember a few of the ones that you did, and I do remember that Buick one because there was something about the when the tailgate was open and you were standing there, and you made a comment to her like, well, this won't work for me. And she's like, what are you saying? You're fine. And you said, wait, well, you can lower it
Right.
and set that. And if that happens, then I'd hit my head. And her expression was kind of like, yeah, well, so what? But she played along. She go, okay, I understand.
Yeah, this
And
car isn't for you. And I was saying, okay, yeah, yeah,
that was kind of her point. Right.
yes.
So you're a brave man because I tried one video with my wife and I wound up with a bruised shoulder because she kept hitting my shoulder, just like, I don't want to be on video, whack, and that was years ago. We did a trip in a Kia Sedona, no, Sported, one of the S's for the Kias. And it wasn't a great video,
Yeah.
but we actually had my family, and it was the only time I did it. Some families are more into doing it than others, and mine, frankly, isn't. And I think that's a good thing for me.
Well, I am incredibly blessed on so many levels. She may actually be the one that ends up editing this podcast before it goes up. But yeah,
Oh,
she
okay.
she is a total blessing. And the fact that she's willing to jump on videos with me, part of her day job is being on camera promoting the city we live in. So she is familiar with it. I'm blessed that she has joined the team to truly give her honest, unbiased opinions, and she does not hold back. And that is something that we get quite a few comments about. Is they don't care what I think. They want to hear what Holly and Tucker have to say. So
Yeah,
I know
well,
my role.
there's something very important about that, and that is the fact that there are, I could probably count them on both hands. Not a lot of female automotive journalists, not ones that are real, actually. Only a few. What I mean by real is that some people are doing multiple podcasts about different things, and
Right.
occasionally we'll talk about cars. I'm talking automotive journalists. So having a female perspective on automotive anything is huge right now, and you should keep it going. It's a really important thing. We've tried it a few times. We've had three different females working at TFL, not at the same time,
Right.
and it's with limited, varied success. It's probably because we're just a bunch of stinky married men who aren't very much fun to hang out with because we're old. But the point is that it was a smart thing to do, and it's a smart thing for the internet because people are looking for that,
Yeah.
and they usually identify with somebody who either reminds them of themselves or somebody else that they could trust.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, just totally blessed that she is playing into my whims here, and now it just means even more vehicles flooding our way. I've already seen the list of upcoming vehicles that we've got, and then we're also embarking on a very ambitious project. We leave in just over a week. We are going to do Texas to LA via Route 66, do a family
Ah,
review, and it's going to be a multi-video series, and just looking forward to seeing how we fare in that situation. My mother-in-law may or may not be joining with us on that one as well. So, yeah.
I wish you luck.
Well, thank you. It should be fun. It's all culminating in taking my son to Disneyland, and more specifically, Cars Land,
Oh,
for
yeah.
his fourth birthday. So tying all the things, he's all things cars, all things Disney cars, and he quite loves my job as well. So I'm
Well, he
sure.
bet it. He was named after a car.
Yes. So yeah, he's he's already been ruined because I mentioned to you earlier driving the Diablo. Uh,
Mhm.
anytime I tell him I'm bringing a black car by, he asks if it's the one with the doors that go up and down. And that's when I knew he was ruined forever. I was like, sorry, son. No, they're not all that cool. But here's a 3 row SUV, which he loves because he loves to fold down the third row and play in the back. So it's the small things in life, right?
Right. Real quick story about my daughter, who's the older one. I used to have a K5, and
Okay. Yes.
I'd pull the top off. Had a 350. Also had the four-speed manual Saginaw transmission. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was a terrible vehicle for families.
Oh,
I
yeah.
couldn't put it in the back seat because I couldn't put a child seat back there. There was no way to really strap it down in that weird,
Right.
second seat. So I'd put her in the passenger seat. And he's a 1990 truck. It didn't have airbags or anything like that. So I'd do that, and she loved it because this thing sounded fast. I put cherry bombs on it. I was an idiot, and drove it around, pissed off my neighbors. And one time I picked her up from school. She was a little upset. I put her in her seat, locked her in, and I get in and go, you okay? And she looks at me and she goes, Daddy, I want you to drive fast. And I thought, oh my God, I've got a perfect kid here.
Yes.
And the best part is, you don't have to really drive fast. You just drop it down a gear and just let it ring out and
Right.
everything else. And she just thinks she's going a million miles per hour when we're going 35. But it was just like such a great memory. Kids and cars, which is a rare thing nowadays,
Mhm.
very, very cool. Very, very cool thing. It really does do a dad well. And by the way, I took my son when he was 5 to Cars Land, I think, or 6. And yeah, he freaked out. He absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, we did it before the Star Wars Land and all that came out. So now I got to take him back before he gets too old and take him to Star Wars. Damn it.
Yeah, I'm just praying that he hits that 40-inch mark so he can actually ride all the rides that we want him to. By the time we get there, he needs half an inch in a week and a half. So we're gonna be shoe shopping, I'm sure. But
Sorry, son, you got to have another steak. Here, just eat it.
yes, but yeah. So things I figured out about Tucker. He heckled me very, very good in a Dodge Charger Hellcat because I was talking about the throttle being the giggle pedal, and he is used to now. We had a Mach E for a week. We had a Tesla Model Y performance. He's used to those acceleration figures, and I only had the black key to the Hellcat. I didn't have the red key, so only had 500 horsepower. And
Bummer.
yeah, he's like, that wasn't a giggle pedal, but go and watch our videos of the Tesla Y. Model Y performance, especially, and he's telling both of us, "Do it again, do it again." He is all about the electric cars, so he's going to grow up in a world where that's all he knows, and it if I have anything to do with it, it won't be, but it's just interesting to see. Like you said, change is inevitable. You got to roll with it and, look at the positive aspects of whatever comes.
Yeah, I look at it this way. If I do survive to retirement, I'm absolutely fine with owning an electric car as long as I can keep some big, smelly, gassy thing in the garage and
Yeah.
occasionally use it. Then
Yeah.
I'm happy. That's all I need.
Yeah. I am never going to not want a big V8 American something in the garage. Don't currently have one. I got rid of my 45th anniversary Camaro SS for a more practical, fuel efficient vehicle that made more sense at the time for me. But yeah, I desperately want another V8 rear wheel drive loud something. And yes, we are looking at EVs and plug in hybrids because you alluded to it earlier. Plug in hybrids are like everybody's skipped step. Stellantis has got a couple. They're really probably the biggest American player in it, but it's like, why did we miss the best of both worlds here? Why did we rush so heavily into full electrification? So
Yeah, and that's a long conversation
yeah,
in
it
itself.
it really is.
Yeah, we just talked about Stellantis today because of the Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe, which
Hmm.
is all new.
Hmm.
Andre's going to be driving that in about 10 days. And
Down in
that
Austin.
thing, I think so.
Yep,
I,
yep,
I
yep.
don't know where everybody goes. I know
It's
I'm supposed to go to LA for
yep.
something soon. So trust me, when you have every automaker pretty much sending you places, it's just You
It
just
gets
worry about
hectic.
your own thing.
Yes.
Yeah, but he told me that the EPA numbers are something like 65 mpge or some, which is really really high. That is in electric car territory
Right.
if you look at mpge. But that's a whole different metric, and we can talk about that maybe some other time. But I do agree with you. It's, I mean, having still being able to have a big V8 or my dream car. Love to get an old V12 Jag,
Ooh.
and run straight pipes on it and piss off my wife.
And
But
the
no, I
neighbors.
mean, I would love to have something like that. And I think that I'm not going to be a fatalist. I honestly do think that there'll be room out there for that as well.
Right.
For those guys who are hobbyists or those people who really need that big beefy truck, I think it'll still be out there for quite some time. But yeah, as I said, I don't mind electric cars that much. So, yep, it's kind of
Yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see what future we really get versus what is more or less being prescribed at the moment.
exactly. I agree with you 100%.
Well, that kind of segues into our closing segment here. Just to get to know you a little bit better, we have a segment we call Random Misfire, that dreaded error code. We have a long list of questions. I'm going to pick out 8 because you and I may disagree on this. All engines should have at least, I'll say it this way, at least 8 cylinders in them. And just, fun this or that questions that kind of dig into your psyche just a little bit. So if you're ready,
I'm good to go.
we'll jump in. I have to ask everyone this. It's a weird thing I do. So I've already played my hand, shown my hand of how I answer this. But do you name your vehicles?
It depends on the vehicle.
Okay. So
Uh,
the K5, maybe
the
something?
K5 Brutus, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I've owned probably about 50 to 60 vehicles of my own over the past many years,
Yes.
and I probably less than half of them have had a name. But since I've had kids, cars get names all the time.
I would imagine so. Yes.
Yeah.
For us, we're kind of stuck. The Jeep, we have a Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk, and it is the first vehicle that has been in my possession that has not really had a name. We traded
Oh,
in.
dude, come! You got to name a Jeep. I mean, name it Eugene. That's what I did with my Jeep.
Our problem is we just. I'll think of something really good and it won't really sit well, and then she'll think of something really good and it won't sit well. So it's getting on up there in miles. We're already talking about a replacement for it. So it's almost like, well, now at this point, we can't. And especially, I think for her, we traded in her Mini Cooper, which she affectionately called the Skittle, in for the Jeep before we had Tucker. And so it just came in a weird time of life for us, and she never got a name.
Your wife and my wife should get together and talk. My wife has a Mini right now, a Countryman, and she absolutely adores it. Adores it.
Yeah, I still get glares every once in a while, and that, when you made me get rid of my Mini Cooper, which may or may
Uh,
not be true, 2-door versus 4-door car, child
well, they
seat.
do build a four-door Mini, more than one too, as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. So, who knows what our
I'm not going to
future
throw you under the
next
tracks, my friend.
vehicle
I'm already
is?
there, so
Yes.
I got it. Yeah.
Let's see here. You've already said you prefer off road, but let's see, 2 wheels or 4.
Four,
Yeah.
four. Yeah, we have a bunch of guys that do two wheels at TFL Bike, and they're lunatics.
That's pretty much how I see things. I've got a bicycle. That's about the extent of it. Never really got into the motorcycle realm any. My love's always been 4 wheels as well.
I like motorcycles. I just like it when other people ride them and crash them. It's all. It's just, I like armor around me, even if it's, almost non-existent. Like,
Right.
once again, my wife's Mini. Nah. And motorcycles, I really do like. I get a real kick out of them. I like the mechanics of them and how cool people, they can make them. And I
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really like, by the way, the Island of Man TT. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, you watch that and you're just like, these guys are out of their minds. It's remarkably deadly. But at the same time, it's like better them than me. So I've ridden a few bikes and I kind of enjoy it, but honestly, four wheels is the only way I want to go.
Okay. So you've alluded to not being afraid of the future and afraid of change, but you also had a K5 Blazer. So are you more into new or more into classic rigs?
So, can we define classic as what? Pre 1990, pre 1980, pre 1970?
That really
Where are
hurts.
you with
Yeah,
classics?
that hurts for me. I'm gonna say anything 80s and down, just because I'm a child of the 80s myself. So anything older than me, I figure we're good at calling that classic, which I guess makes
Okay.
me a classic. So there, it is what it is.
No, I still do prefer older cars, and I I find that they're less intrusive and they
Mm.
allow more fun. Even a simple car. You know, a funny story, real quick. Just like a month ago, I was with a friend of mine, and we were going to be going into the mountains, and his daughter has it's like a 92 or something Toyota Camry with a manual transmission, four-cylinder engine, as basic as it gets. And he asked me to drive it just to see whether or not it, was pulling to the side, whatever. So I
Mm.
did. And I kept thinking, this is so refreshing. Yeah, it's got ABS and an airbag, but there's like nothing else in
Right,
this. It's
right.
like, I kind of like that. And it reminds me from time to time, especially when I jump into older vehicles, which I do often at TFL,
Hmm.
like how kind of cool it was. Yeah, okay, you might die a horrible death in the crash, but at least you're having fun. So I really do prefer the older cars, even though the newer cars make sense in so many ways for safety and of course,
Build quality and all that good stuff.
right, that too.
Yeah. Well, Tommy just recently drove that manually equipped Plymouth Voyager, I believe it was. That it took me back to my youth. We had a 92 Plymouth Grand Voyager with an automatic, but just seeing him do a walk around on that old rig was like, wow, times have definitely changed because minivans have come so far since then.
Oh my God, they have, and there's. I still think they're some of the most utilitarian vehicles out there. And if you're secure with your manlyhood, I still think this is like it's the smartest damn thing to drive if you need space for people and stuff.
Yeah,
But
we've got a Toyota Sienna press rig coming in the next month or so, and I cannot wait. I've been begging Toyota. I'm like, please send me a Sienna. I do family reviews, please, please. And so
is it
we've,
all-wheel drive? Is it the all-wheel
uh,
drive? Because they're all hybrids.
I do. Let's see. I know it's a platinum, so it's the tip top, as good as it can get. I'm gonna say it is an all-wheel drive, but I cannot remember specifically off the top of my head at this
Do
moment.
yourself a favor, and I got a little bit of static for doing this because I was hooning the van, but definitely if it is the all-wheel drive, put it on some dirt and try to kick it out a little bit. Shut off the traction control. The new algorithm they've got going to the powering the rear wheels is completely different, and you can get tons of torque going to the rear wheels. It was not like that in the past with older Toyotas
Oh my
using the
goodness.
electronic all-wheel drive, and I was able to do donuts. I mean, it
Swagger
really
wagon,
puts a lot
man.
of
It's the
huh?
swagger wagon.
No, no, it's I mean, they call it that. I really do lose a little bit of humanity when I drive one, but the other side of it is it's it's smart.
Yeah.
I mean, think about minivans, how they're for years and years and years, they were just getting crap mileage, but they were really logical otherwise. We had hybrid powertrains for what we're going up to almost 30 years now.
Hmm.
It's like 27 years or something that we could have. Why didn't they put them in those vans then? Oh my
Right.
God, it would have been great. It would have been a revolution. So it's just my own personal opinion. But years ago, Roman and I agreed that minivans would have been the smartest bet for hybridization. And now finally we're starting to see it.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I spent 12 years in corporate analytics, and sometimes you just you get analysis paralysis, and that's how I will attribute us just now getting hybrid minivans. Is it just got lost in all the numbers that
I, I,
somebody
I agree with you.
finally was the squeaky enough wheel inside the halls of Toyota and said, "Hey, it's time to pull the trigger on this." So
Yeah, it took way too long.
yes. All right. Here we go. Here's a good one. Favorite driving song or genre? When you just gotta power down the road, what are you listening to?
Well, if any of your fans have listened or watched or just done anything with me, you guys know that I'm a rocker.
Hmm.
Always have been, always will be. I like heavy metal and punk rock, and but mostly prog rock. And my
Okay.
favorite band of all is Rush. They
Okay.
are by far, not only are they my favorite band, but they are the best band in the world de facto. Go ahead and challenge me, I'll fight you. Rush is great for driving music. They actually have some great car oriented songs,
Hmm.
but in terms of a band that gets me really nuked when I'm behind the wheel, like if I have to drive a Honda Civic and with a CVT, and I'm just trying desperately to enjoy it, I will find really, really hardcore, obnoxious music that does not fit the car, like Motorhead or Iron Maiden or Bad Brains or something along those lines, and I will crank it and destroy whatever sound system it has to make the car better, and it works.
Yeah.
Good music makes any car better. So yeah, but it's hard rock and roll basically would be my answer.
So I may make. I'm gonna see where you fall on this next one really quickly. When I got in that '04 Corvette and turned it on, I don't know who put it on the station that it was on, but the radio was on, and I swear could not have planned this. Nickelback was playing, and I was like, there's just it just fit at the moment. It took me back to high school, and Nickelback is blasted everywhere. But I don't know. It just put a smile on my face because it transported me back to high school, and it was a good laugh.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Music and cars fit together, and it doesn't matter if a car is slow and anemic or super sophisticated or a hardcore off-roader. You can find music to fit any car,
Yep.
and sometimes you can improve the car with the music.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Let's see here. Favorite automotive car movie, and if it's not already on my watch list or something I've seen, this is a perfect way to add to.
Grand Prix.
Okay.
John Frankenheimer, one of his first big movies. No special effects with fake screens behind you. Almost everything was practical effects done way back in the day. James Garner was in it. An incredible cast of characters, an incredible movie. Even though the story itself was kind of tepid, it still revolves around the world of Formula One and how shishi some of it is, but also how manly it can be.
Yeah.
Phenomenal movie. Phenomenal. My favorite car movie.
Okay. Let's see here. This one's a good one. Do you hand wash your own vehicles?
It depends on the car.
Okay.
So my wife's car, no. That at the best gets a sprayer. I do not want to fall in love with my wife's car. If I have a project car,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that baby's going to get hand washed. I'm going to use the scrub brush, and I'm going to use actual chamois. It gets all my attention. That godforsaken Chevy Blazer I had, that red one that had the paint falling off it, got cleaner while I had it, which was for about 8 months, than most people with their new cars and stylish BMWs. I absolutely treated that thing to several hand washes. And there's a reason for that. And it's a smart one if you ever buy yourself an old used vehicle. Hand washing a vehicle, I mean, seriously, hand washing a vehicle,
Hmm.
you get an idea of what panels are straight, what aren't, what is falling off, where rust may be. There's a surprising amount of things you can do by being up close in person and not going through some automated car wash.
I agree.
So, and living here in Colorado, you have to wash the underside of your car or else it's going to fall apart with rot.
Hmm.
We have a lot of snow melt that just absolutely contaminates the bottom of cars that and our wet weather sometimes. So in Texas, hey, you guys have got humidity and all that and seawater if you go down Corpus Christi in
Yeah.
that area. So I
Yep.
get it. That could be bad too. Yeah, I really do believe in hand washing older cars unless you hate them.
Yeah. Well, One of these days, I'm going to get around to sharing the story about how hand washing my Silverado saved my life, but I'm just going to keep teasing that one until then.
Oh,
But
that's kind of cool. All
yeah,
right.
I'm
I'm
all
intrigued.
in on hand washing, and again, the poor Jeep has gotten forsaken in this. Parenting, man, it changed me, so I need to get back in the habit for sure, and that Jeep will get a proper hand washing from me at some point.
I Corey, I bet you if that was a track hawk, you'd be hand washing it. I bet you would.
I had a Trackhawk for a day, and I said, I think this is the Hellcat powered thing I would have. It just made the most sense. I've been in all of them, the TRX, the Durango, all of them. The Trackhawk just made me the happiest of all of them.
It's a beast, and it's one that'll immediately endear you to it, and you will hand wash it.
Yes, absolutely. Especially if I had gotten the one that I drove because it was black, and I have sworn off black vehicles until I haven't had one for a while. But I've had one for 9 years now, and I'm done with black. It's just no, no, thank you.
Gotcha.
Let's see. Speaking of Hellcat powered things, TRX or Raptor?
Uh, Ford guys are going to hate me, but TRX, and it's not just because of the engine note, which is addictive, or the fact that it has over 700 horsepower. I like the way it looks a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, just a little tiny bit more. We recently had a Raptor on the 37s, and it looks
Mm-hmm.
great.
Yeah.
It looks great, but then it's not. It doesn't have the horsepower it needs. Ford
Right.
is going to have the Raptor R soon, and I believe that'll be the one that'll make it really hard for me to decide between the TRX and the Raptor. But right now, TRX absolutely.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly on all points. All right, final random misfire. Let's do a fun one here. I told you I'm about to embark on a cross country road trip. What is your go to road trip snack?
Beef jerky.
Okay.
Oh
Any
yeah.
particular brand or is it local? Like, where are you going
I
there?
like no, I like buying beef jerky that's local to places I go to. So, for instance, if I'm going through, North Carolina, and they have some sort of special, I remember there was like a really spicy one that they
Mm,
had at this, backwater place, and I bought it, and I didn't get sick. I actually, knock on wood, have managed to eat jerky at many different places. I like buying something that's kind of local,
yeah.
Sue's special brand, or there was one that I got near Las Vegas. It was the Alien brand, which was really horrible, by the way.
Mm,
Um, there are other ones. I like jerky, and I don't like the prefabricated stuff that they
right.
sell. Your local 7-Eleven or whatever. I can't stand that. I like that stuff that feels like I've torn into a cow and I'm starting to eat it. That type of thing. So, and you guys in Texas should dig that because
We
you
do.
guys are all about that. Best barbecue in the nation, right there in Texas. So
Absolutely.
this is as close as it gets, right? So yeah,
Yes,
that's
we take our jerky seriously here. In fact,
yeah,
I'm sure you've been to a Bucky's on a stop through or by Texas. We have
hell
an
yeah,
entire wall of jerky at our Bucky's. It's
yes.
massive. So yes,
It's the My brother lives in Texas and he's been there for almost 40 years. So I mean, I'm very used to Texas. I love going,
yeah.
and it's also car country. A lot of people don't be there, but yeah, jerky and a cup of coffee, and I'm good for a whole road trip.
All right, there you go. Well, I've got a couple more bonus questions. If you'll stick around for our Patreon supporters, we'll
Happily.
put those behind the paywall. But until then, I just wanted to say thank you so much, and just keep doing what you're doing there because I'll keep watching. Where can our listeners find you if somehow they have not already?
Well, all right, let's see if I can get them all right. Um, on YouTube, look for the Fast Lane Car, the Fast Lane Truck, the Fast Lane Now or TFL Now, TFL Bike, TFL Classics,
Mhm.
TFL Talk, TFL EV.
Okay.
Am I missing? I think oh, TFL Off Road.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I covered all of the ones now. Honestly, it would not surprise me if we have TFL, U-boat anytime soon. It could happen. But those are the ones, and they're on YouTube. Plus, almost all of those have websites as well: TFLcar.com, TFLtruck.com, TFLoffroad.com, and TFLbike.com. And I think there's one more that we're doing right now. So anyway, we're all over the place, and we're really receptive to people who want to chime in. We tend to answer an awful lot of emails, and you can find them there on those sites. I think that's it. Yeah.
Well, Nathan, thank you again so much for coming on, shooting the breeze with me. There's so much more that I know we could talk about. We'll just keep in touch and, might have you back sometime.
Cory, it's a pleasure. Yeah, absolutely. Tell you what, let's try to let's see what happens in 1 year. I want to see you double in growth minimum in 1 year.
Hey,
If you can manage to do that, if you double in growth in 1 year, I will happily come onto your show and do 2 hours with you, whatever you want.
challenge accepted.
All right. You guys heard it here first.
Thank you so much. So, just so much fun. I just love talking cars, and I thank you so much for being a listener of this podcast, because you allow me to talk cars with some of the coolest, most interesting, most fun people throughout the industry. And I just adore it. That is the best thing about this podcast, is getting to talk to people about cars from all different backgrounds and get to share their stories with you. That is the point, is getting to share a little bit more of what goes on. We see these people on YouTube. We see them doing, I've interviewed people that have done the Dakar rally. I've interviewed people that have done crazy things that I could only dream of here in East Texas. And I get to share those stories with you and get to dream about what that would be like, and just help prove to you, the listener, that if you can dream it, you can do it. Because so many people I've come across have so many varying different degrees of stories and backgrounds. And just to get to hear Nathan's story about how, he decided after college that, the path he was on wasn't the one he wanted. And now here he is, part of TFL Studios, one of the most recognized names in automotive YouTube, and doing some fun stuff over there, working hard, but enjoying every minute of it. And he has been a supporter of ours, and I very much appreciate his support in what he's doing. We had a good conversation before recording, and what you see is what you get with Nathan. True, genuine guy. I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to get to share his story with you, our listening audience. And with that, we will close out today's episode. We thank you so much for listening. As always, you can find out more about us, gtgaragetalk.com, links to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all that from there. Until next time, bye.